Hello and welcome to another in our series of short conversations that we call Bits and Bytes Live, where we look at stories and topics of the day through the lens of the communication service provider. Now today, what we're going to talk about, I think, is a very interesting and important topic. As telcos evolve, as we move forward to become, if you like, the future telco, ecosystems are becoming absolutely mandatory, and how partners work together to deliver to our joint customers and actually effectively partners, the service providers, how those relationships develop and work are incredibly important. So for that reason, I am really pleased that today we've got as guest Ravi Chaudhary, who is Senior Product Manager for the Telco Cloud Infrastructure Readiness business within HPE, a key partner of VMware's, and Solomon, who is our Director of Technical Product Management within our Service Provider and Edge business unit. I'll be hosting the conversation. I'm Nigel Stevenson. I am also part of the Service Provider and Edge business unit, and I look after market development, most specifically for the EMEA region. So with those introductions, welcome, gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining, and thank you, Ravi, for joining us on this call to talk about the relationship with HPE in particular, which, as I said, is very key for us. So perhaps that's probably the best place to start. If we kick it off, Ravi, maybe you can give us a very sort of short history of the relationship between VMware and HPE and how that's been evolving more recently around vertical markets, perhaps.
Sure. First of all, thanks, Nigel and Oded, for having me out here on this platform for live discussion. Really appreciate that. Coming back to the question, so earlier HPE and VMware have a long history of relationship. I think it's more than 20 years. But it was more on the enterprise side earlier. But in the late last, I would say, in a couple of years, roughly 5 years or so, we have been kind of jointly collaborating to focus towards the telco vertical. So there are a lot of deals where the partnership and the relationship with VMware has been really instrumental to kind of drive this joint venture.
Yeah, sure. And in fact, I mean, I know recently, for example, there was the collaboration around Rogers in Canada on the 5G infrastructure deployment there. So some really good examples of how this is a very real working relationship. So as you say, I mean, the relationship has been there for a long time. The not exactly very recent, but the more recent aspect of that has been this focus by both our organizations around the telco industry and the communication service provider. So can you tell us a little bit from an HPE point of view, some of the things that HPE has been doing to help customers looking to deploy some of these infrastructures and how that relates to the way we work together as organizations?
Yeah, sure. So lately we have been coming up with something known as the Hewlett-Packard Enterprise Telco Blueprints. This is something which is kind of by which we provide the telco grade infrastructure, which is DEPS level 3 certified, and and it is across the board which is applicable for the computes, the storage, and the networking piece as well. So HPE has been leading this this journey towards the network function virtualization side, for instance, which we call as the NFV, since a long time, and we wanted to kind of steer this ahead and drive the telcos to the point where they can kind of have their infrastructure up and running with the minimal time. And for this, this is how we came up with something known as the Hpe Telco Blueprints, which are nothing but they are reference design validated by our telecommunication experts who leverage infrastructure as code principles, and HP and FE best practices are kind of included during the development of these blueprints. So these blueprints also come up with something known as an optional NFV platform software, which we call as the NPS toolkit, which is designed to simplify the NFV stack deployment and configuration of the configuration on the HP infrastructure. Okay. So a couple of benefits which I would like to highlight. Probably we can talk about later, but Telco Blueprints help us to kind of steer the development work for this deployment in the right direction with the minimal time to market, I would say.
Sure, and yeah, I'm sure we'll talk more about the use of blueprints and how customers are leveraging those. Ned, if I could bring you into the conversation as well. You're obviously looking at it very much from the technology development within VMware. So that you're looking at some of the core technology that we offer. How important and how do you see the benefit of key partners like HPE and initiatives like creating blueprints? How do you see the benefit of those? What's the value of those, do you think, to the communication service provider?
So first of all, thank you for having me here, and thank you, Ravi, for the intro and explanation of the blueprints and how do we go about simplifying the provisioning and the bring up of those systems for our service provider customers. So the way I see the industry for many years now, since NFV started, is about simplifying the operations. It's about time to market. How do we actually deploy the hardware, configure it with minimal OpEx, and the blueprints is all about that. Service providers, they tend to have each service provider tend to have their own hardware specific requirements, and the variety of the configurations, the hardware permutations that we need to support as a cloud platform across the entire industry, it's becoming complex. And there is a lot of work that is being done in the backend. Our vSphere team, our Tanzu for Telco team, working tirelessly with partners such as HPE. And the partnership is very strong to abstract the hardware for our service providers, for our partners, so they consume the hardware resources that telco network functions require. Now, one of the complexities is managing VNFs and CNFs side by side. And having those blueprints for the TCI, Telco Cloud Infrastructure for VNF, having those blueprints for TCP, the Telco Cloud Platform for CNFs, is really important for us to consistently manage those type of resources in an SDDC. We've been working with HPE very closely on making sure that our cloud platform for telco is certified and performs in a carrier-grade manner. HPE, with their deep knowledge and expertise of the VMware stack, are working with us, making sure that the overall experience of the customer, when they choose to deploy those blueprints in their networks, is as seamless as possible, right? So essentially deploying quickly, and again, you mentioned Rogers. It's a very good example of how we solve those problems jointly by offering this type of pre-certified blueprints to simplify the operation.
Sure. Yeah, so so I guess that it comes down to, well, two things. I think a couple of things I take away at least. One is this is a real engineering level engagement, right? This is not a marketing exercise. This is very much a collaboration at an engineering level on the vendor side, if you like. But then the benefit that flows through is going to be things like time to market and de-risking and predictability and that kind of thing. And I guess also, Ravi, turn back to yourself. Of course, I said at the beginning, the modern telco is the way the telcos are developing, the CSP industry in general, is very much around ecosystems, right? There is no one supplier. And so a big part of this, I guess, is, yes, obviously we're very close in terms of the VMware HPE relationship. You'll also be bringing in other vendors and looking beyond just our organizations in terms of trying to solve the problem for the customer. Now you mentioned the blueprints, and I think you also mentioned, I know you spoke before about toolkits. Can you tell us a little bit more, or the tool sets? Can you tell us a little bit more about how these are used in practice, and how service providers can take advantage of them, or even how you help them make use of them yourselves as a service, perhaps?
Sure. So, just to add, the blueprints which we kind of had done, we always we launch something known as, all the telco blueprints come with something known as the Hpe Telco Software Defined Infrastructure, which we call as the SDI toolset, right? So this toolset is basically, it helps us to address the various challenges, as we say, fitting the right pieces at the right places, right? So this toolset kind of helps to reduce the risk and complexity associated with the cloud infrastructure configuration, right? So this toolset also provides smart utilities and performance benchmark reports needed to efficiently optimize infrastructure deployments, saving the telcos both time and the resources. So just to summarize, the benefits of the Hpe Telco Sda toolset, it is more of a simplified. It helps in the simplified configuration. It reduces the errors. It could be human errors as well. It accelerates the provisioning time of the overall stack. It optimizes the configuration with predictable performance metrics, and in the end, it's faster time to value, right?
And if I understand correctly, your blueprints, for example, are done by use case. So you have different blueprints for different use cases. Is that correct?
That's true. We cater to a lot of the edge or core-based use cases, and lately, the MEC and the vRAN have kind of taken a big leap for us. So earlier, we had kind of come up with one of the core blueprints with the VMware TCI stack. And sometime next month, we plan to have another blueprint on the core side, which would have the VMware TCP stack.
Okay, cool, excellent. And I think you mentioned edge there. I think I detected that, because I was going to move on to that. A lot of what has happened in the industry has been in the core of the network, especially in the mobile core. Not exclusively, but that seems to have driven a lot of the deployments and certainly a lot of the use cases we've been involved in. But it is that cloudification is moving out towards the edge, whether that's for MEC, for multi-access edge compute type services to the enterprise, or whether it's for hosting some of the RAN functions and the cloud of the RAN. So I want to move the conversation onto that piece, actually, if I may. I'll go back to Oded and get maybe the VMware perspective. So maybe, as I say, we've kind of got this experience in the core. That started with NFV. I suppose it started with virtualized functions. The story there, I guess, is all about containerized functions, right? So it's how do we move that piece forward towards containerization? So that's going through an evolution. But we're also moving out towards the RAN and the edge, which brings different requirements, different attributes. Could you maybe just say something about the work and the solutions and the approach we're taking to moving out towards the edge and towards the RAN?
Sure. So first of all, when we move from the core to the edge of the network, the data centers become smaller and smaller, right? So the way that we design the data centers, the type of hardware that we are using, the closest to the endpoints, the closer to the users, the less hardware we use, and the type of compute that we need differs based on, you mentioned, different use cases. So for the RAN workloads at the far edge, we have the distributed unit. We are working very closely with HPE to define the next blueprint for that based on the DL110. So we will be working together on the Telco Cloud Platform for RAN to address this specific use case. On the CU, the centralized unit, we have more computes, more servers. Typically, there are different topologies, right? So different customers choose to deploy those network functions in a different topologies. But when we have more servers and more options, we can use the DL360, and this is what we're working with HPE as well. Now, when we serve the DU functions on top of vSphere, ESXi, our Tanzu is being customized to meet the telco requirements, the performance requirements. We have on our platform, part of the platform is TCA with the late binding feature, which is actually configuring the lower level of, the huge pages configuration, the CPU pinning, the SROV virtual functions, and all the technical things that are needed in order to support the DU workloads. Without having HPE engaged in this type of engineering exercise, those network functions will not perform as expected. We are running with HPE Intel FlexRun and Cyclist Test and other type of benchmarking to make sure that we are meeting those requirements. Additional use cases are obviously around the enterprise edge with our ECP, private 5G use cases, MEC. Some of these use cases required, for example, GPUs that we need in order to process analytics data for retail stores. And it requires different type of compute, different type of CPUs, GPUs, different type of acceleration cards. And as part of this ecosystem of partners, HPE is playing a significant role in enabling us, getting us the access to the labs, to the testing equipment, to the hardware, before we go out and present it to the customer. So there is a lot of work that is happening in the background to support these type of use cases.
Excellent. And I get, so for me as a mere marketeer, what I see there is a huge amount of engineering effort going on, behind the scenes. What we see out front, as it were, is that extension of that consistent environment across the whole infrastructure. So we're trying to keep that simplicity keeps coming back as a recurring theme, right?
That is correct.
The
harder we work.
Things.
So the harder we work on the back end, the more simple it becomes to our customers and our partners, right? So we do the hard work, for others will be more simple. So
cool. And Ravi, I mean, is there anything that you can tell us about any specific towards the edge that HPE are doing over and above? I mean, Oded's already mentioned quite a few things we're working on together, but are there other things you could mention in terms of HPE supporting customers looking to push services out towards the edge?
Yeah, sure. I mean, before I go there, on the hard work front, I just like to add to what Oded said, that, just quoting Thomas Edison right there. He said that, innovation is 1% and 99% is perspiration, right? So I think both of us, the way the symbiosis is working, it kind of gels, that all the perspiration is kind of, we are seeing results of all the innovation and the engineering work which is going behind the scenes. And coming to the edge side, right? So DL110 platform, as what it said, is one of the platforms which recently has been introduced, and it is specifically customized for edge applications which require high bandwidth and low latency, and especially meant for the vRAN based use cases. It also provides a reduced footprint with a very compact and a short depth, 1U, 1P front accessible chassis, right? And it is also, again, just to add, it is NIBS level 3 certified, which ensures that there is a compliance for all the harsh environments wherever these units are deployed at the edge or at the far edge.
Excellent. Well, look, we're getting a bit close to our time. These are designed to be conversations people can listen to over a cup of coffee, and the coffee's possibly starting to get a bit cold. So so we need to think about wrapping it up. But that, I mean, to me, thank you both for joining. I think that's quite an insight into the depth of development collaboration that goes behind what ultimately goes out and supports customers' innovation and so on site. Just for folks watching, if anybody wants to reach out, obviously they can connect to any of us on this call through LinkedIn. Be happy to respond that way. And VMware will be at HPE Discover event as well. So if anybody's going to HPE Discover, then they'll be able to come and chat to some of the VMware folks supporting that event. Other than that, though, but I just wrap up and say thank you both very much again. That was a really interesting conversation, much appreciated. And until the next time, thank you everybody for listening.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye. Have a good day.